How do you know if you should use an RFI versus RFP versus RFQ? It all comes down to what you're trying to accomplish. While they all help organizations gather information from vendors, they each serve a distinct purpose. Used independently or together, RFIs, RFPs, and RFQs are all important tools for reducing risk, saving money, and picking the perfect partner. Today, we will check out everything about RFI, RFQ, RFP. 5. Understand the key differences between RFI, RFP, and RFQ. If you find the terms confusing, you're not the only one, and in fact, some solicitations are described incorrectly by the issuing body. A good way to think about the differences between the RFI, the RFP, and the RFQ is that each indicates a different level of readiness to buy, with RFI being the least ready and RFQ being the most. RFI, this is a request for information, a signal that the government body is probably in the market for a solution but won't be buying imminently. After reading the responses to an RFI, the contracting authority will be better informed about the available solutions to its business problems and the competing vendors who can help them. They also have a good idea of which vendors have the most insight or market knowledge in this area. RFP, this is a request for proposal and indicates that the issuer is shopping for a vendor, but they need more details before they can buy, and they're open to new approaches or ideas. The RFP will ask vendors for their pricing and the approach they'll take if they win the contract. The RFP will also give a sense of the deadlines and timelines that the successful bidder will need to meet. RFQ. This is a request for quotation and shows that the issuer is ready to buy now. They've done their research and know exactly the service or product they want, and in what quantities or for what duration of time. They're ready to get precise pricing, and they're not interested in hearing about new solutions that they haven't already considered. 4. RFI, short for Request for Information. The RFI is really a preliminary document used by companies that don't understand the marketplace they're about to enter. In the case of companies searching for a customer relationship management (CRM) solution, for instance, it would use an RFI that had no prior experience with CRM and wanted to gain an understanding on the range of options in the CRM space. Because the RFI is more of a fact-finding document, you'll want to ask open-ended questions, ones that allow the vendors to talk about full range of offerings. Typically, the RFI will state the broad business challenges you're having, and then the vendor can tailor its response within the context of those challenges. Oftentimes, the vendor will explain its position in the market. For instance, what industries it specializes in, how it licenses its products, and what other fees you can expect. This stage collects information from vendors about their products or services based on general queries. It stimulates the business planning process after gathering the required information. For instance, an organization decides to set up a new office where the company will hire 1,000 new employees. To ensure smooth business operations, the organization will need to provide laptops, desktops, printers, coffee machines, chairs, desks, and other facilities. There cannot be any compromise on the quality, even on bulk orders. So, should the organization go and shop directly from the market? No, a strict no. This is where RFI comes into the picture. Here, RFI helps the sourcing manager with every detail from a pool of expert vendors. The process includes inviting potential vendors to collect information for the complex high-spend purchase, building vendor databases according to the sourcing category, being aware of requirements and market trends. 3. RFP. An RFP, request for proposal, is a document that asks vendors to propose solutions to a customer's problems or business requirements. An RFP usually was what follows an RFI. In fact, it's rare that a company will go from an RFI to an RFQ. An RFP should contain much more specificity in terms of what a company's needs are by outlining the business goals for the project and identifying specific requirements that are necessary for what the work is being requested. The key to this document is that there is sufficient detail to give vendors the context they need. in order to propose a valid solution, yet it still needs to allow enough leeway for the vendors to apply creativity and best practices to fulfill those needs. This formal and structured stage is designed to collect vendor-specific information and pricing. It involves inviting vendors to suggest solutions for the query. In addition, RFP allows a side-by-side vendor comparison. For instance, continuing the above example, an RFI response or information from vendors related to laptops, furniture, and more, with the data collected, the procurement managers can prepare the requirements as RFP, with questions and evaluation criteria to procure the material needed. In addition, the team has to define the exact quantity, quality, budget, and delivery time, and go forward to the RFP publish stage. The PMO or CPO works with the team to create RFP in the following way: set milestones for the RFP cycle, start a description of the service or product required, use the RFP template with valid questions, compare RFP responses from vendors. 2. RFQ, short for Request for Quotation. The RFQ is an even more detailed document that drills down to the exact specifications required by the company. In a situation where an RFQ is used for a B2B software project, the company knows enough about its current system and exactly how it wants to change or improve it in the future. Unlike the RFP, which allows for the flexibility of the vendors to suggest creative solutions to the problem, a company deploying an RFQ isn't looking for creativity, but rather for the vendor to deploy the software using predetermined specifications. Typically, the RFQ contains a table that lists each requirement and then asks the vendor to assess its ability to meet that requirement. The vendor then will specify whether it can meet the requirement out of the box, whether it will require some configuration, whether it will require some custom code, or whether it will require leveraging third-party vendors. It is a formal conversation between the organization and vendor on the pricing of products or services and payment terms. Considering all the mandatory information is already with the organization, this process comes into play as a final call before the purchase. It helps evaluate and award the bid to the vendor with the ability to fulfill your requirements. Now that you know when to use RFI, RFP, and RFQ in the below scenarios, asking questions from a vendor, which one to select for specific or general queries, selecting a preferred vendor from the list, working with an existing or new vendor. 1. Choosing between an RFI, RFQ, or RFP. All three, RFI, RFP, and RFQ, are related to the sourcing and procurement functions of the business. All three activities are helpful in overall supply chain management, and which one would be used for business depends on the end goal of the activity. For instance, if you're looking at reducing the cost of a product or service, you can opt for an RFQ. If you're looking at getting better service or improving the quality of the product, you can go for an RFP. At the same time, if you're not sure what solution can help you get better at doing business, you can opt for an RFI. The three documents are different in what they achieve for the business, but in the end, all three are focused on increasing the competitiveness of the business in the marketplace. Your contract management remains the same in all three documents, especially when selecting a vendor based on an RFP or RFQ. The requests that you need to use will depend on a lot of your understanding of the supplier market and on your own needs. If you are unfamiliar with the market and you aren't entirely sure which products or services work best for you, you should issue RFIs to know what everyone is offering. On the other hand, if you have a good handle on the different suppliers, but still want to see what kind of solutions they bring to the table, go with an RFP. Lastly, if you already know the market and you have a clear idea of what the products and services you'll need, you can go ahead and issue an RFQ. Do let us know in the comments which one of them would you like to choose. Thanks for watching.